Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Welcome to Shields. It is a happy good morning to the NFC East. Just like the Philadelphia Phillies, the NFC East did not lose on Sunday. The Eagles didn't even lose because they didn't play. So, yeah, if you're an NFC East fan, I'm just going to say this to everybody out there. Yesterday was the worst possible day if you're an Eagles fan. But if you're a fan of the division, if you want to boast that the NFC East is the best division in football, this was it. So Jeff Kerr for CBS Sports here with my man, Tone DeShields, my quarterback. Tone, we're in a really good mood, as you can tell by our hats. We're tired of that.
Listen, man, this is what dreams are made of. This is what these moments are made of, man. First things first, before we get into some football, we know this is a football show, right, Jeff? We know we get that, but you got to acknowledge greatness. This Philadelphia Phillies team, they are heading to the World Series.
I can't believe it. I was at the game Friday. I still can't believe it. I've been a season ticket holder for the Phillies for over 15 years now. Pretty much ever since this is Bank Ballpark existed, and I was old enough to consistently go to games on my own dime. I've had season tickets, and man, I'll tell you what, Tone, this is one of those years where I didn't expect anything. I just enjoyed the ride. I think I was more happier they made the playoffs than I was yesterday when they won the National League, because I don't scream much during games, but when I do, it counts. I will say this. I screamed a lot louder when they made the playoffs than I actually did yesterday. I think yesterday was like, oh, my God, like I can't believe it. I'm on cloud nine right now.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. The Phillies continue to stay hot, but this NFC East, man, are they even hotter? It's three teams right now. It's really fascinating to watch, right? As much as we could talk about our Philadelphia Phillies, this NFC East, man, the Eagles had their bye week, but Cowboys win, Giants win, Commanders win. Who would have thought the NFC East would be exactly where it is today going into week 8, finishing up with week 7 of the NFL season? And, I want to start you off with the Cowboys game. Now, the Cowboys beat the Lions 24-6, and once again, the defense won the day. 5 sacks, forced 5 turnovers, 3 fumbles, 2 interceptions, and Dak Prescott made his return, and he was pretty efficient, completing 76% of his passes, 207 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown at the bitter end. But what's really interesting about this game, and I don't want Cowboys fans to get too ahead of themselves, the Lions kept this game very close into the final 3 minutes of the game, and then they committed 2 awful turnovers, I believe, and the Cowboys were able to score 14 points in the final 2 minutes, putting the game completely to rest. So let's be honest, that score was really 10-6 before it became 24-6. But what was your reaction to the Dallas Cowboys, and how did they get it done?
I thought the Cowboys were efficient yesterday, Tone. I'll say that. Even when it was 10-6, and look, Detroit had that bad fumble in the red zone yesterday that I think really hurt them, the Jamal Williams fumble I think it was the 2-yard line. I thought that was one of the differences in the game. But overall, they were efficient yesterday. I know the numbers don't look great, only 330 total yards, 3 of 9 on third down. But, hey, I really don't know if Dallas wins that game if Cooper Rush starts. If I'm going to be honest with you, I liked how they kept the same game plan. It's like, okay, Dak, you're going to be a game manager today. We know what you can do, but let's get the ball to Tony Pollard. Let's get the ball to Ezekiel Elliott. By the way, he's kind of hit a little. I mean, he's still young, but it's kind of like 2016, 2017 Ezekiel Elliott, especially in the red zone.
Right.
But man, so that defense is just unbelievably good. Don't test Trayvon Diggs. Don't test Micah Parsons. I mean, Parsons had 2 sacks yesterday. Williams had 2 sacks yesterday. Man, it's oh no, sorry, Parsons had 1 sack, but still, losing Jordan Lewis is going to be big for Dallas. Obviously, for those of you who did watch that game, I did the Giants game yesterday, so I didn't get to see too much of Dallas. But when I rewatched it last night, I will say this: I think they're the second best team in the NFC, Tone, and I think it's the Eagles. I think it's the Cowboys, and that's kind of everybody else.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people thought the San Francisco 49ers would be in that top 2, top 3 echelon, with the Eagles and the Cowboys. Because I think we talked about this before. I think the Cowboys and the Eagles are the top 3 or 2 of the top 3 teams in the NFC. But the 49ers lost yesterday and they got waxed by the Kansas City Chiefs. But that's another story for another day. But, the Cowboys, once again, their defense and it's something to be said about it. I'm not sure how far it'll take them in the grand scheme of things, but I think this was a good comeback win for Dak Prescott coming off of the injury. This was the perfect tune-up match, I guess you'll say.
Yeah, and he wanted this game. Ed Werder reported yesterday, like, this was the game he wanted to come back, that he felt he was going to be held. I think a lot of it had to do with, okay, I get to face the Lions defense yesterday, but you're right. It was a close game for the majority of this game, and the Lions just shot themselves in the foot with turnovers, and Jared Goff turned into Jared Goff again. Jared Goff's been playing well for the majority of the year, but ever since Detroit had that game against the Patriots, they haven't been the same team. They were a team that was scoring a lot of points. They couldn't stop anybody. Now they're kind of stopping people, but they don't score now. It's the size of a 1-5 football team, if you want to be honest. I don't want to overblow the win too much, but Dallas did what they had to do at home to win a football game and to keep pace with. I mean, they're 2 games beyond the, well, technically a game and a half because the Eagles didn't play, but the Eagles own the tiebreaker over them right now. They needed to win yesterday.
Absolutely. Let's transition to the New York Giants, right? They won 23-17 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. They improved to 6-1, 3-0 on the road. And, they've another team that's just been surprising you time and time again and just been finding ways to win. And this was another nail biter through and through. 10 fourth quarter points scored in the final 6 minutes of the game for the Giants. So they were able to really, bear down and really lock in. And Daniel Jones had another game that we didn't really expect him to have. Over 300 yards of total offense, 2 touchdowns. And the story of the game for me was the 236 rushing yards for the New York Giants and the fact that they won time of possession by a pretty good margin. An efficient win, another efficient win for the NFC East. What was your thoughts on that game?
So this is a weird game for me, Tone, because I thought the Jaguars did plenty to lose this game. Travis Etienne's fumble at the 5-yard line. Doug Pearson, for some reason, Doug Pearson did not challenge the spot in the fourth quarter when the Jaguars were up 17-13. Let me just break it down here. So what Doug Pearson did was he did direct snap to Travis Etienne. It looked like Etienne got the first down. Doug didn't challenge it. Didn't challenge the spot. I thought it was a bad spot. Didn't challenge it. Didn't really do anything. Just assumed they were going to get the 4th down. Trevor Lawrence didn't get the sneak. And then the Giants went on a drive to end up taking the lead with 5 minutes left. And then, again, Tony, it's just frustrating, like, what Jacksonville does to lose games. I think they're a lot better. Don't get me wrong, but this game was a microcosm of the Giants season, right? So no turnovers for Daniel Jones. He's the first Giants quarterback to run for 100 yards in the game since Ed Danowski in 1934. So yeah, if you know who Ed Danowski is, good for you. But Giants quarterbacks don't run for 100 yards in the game. He was efficient. Saquon Barkley had the quietest 110 yards I ever seen. And this is a guy who covered the game. And man, he was just efficient too. Efficient, good. The Giants just do what they have to do. They let other teams beat each other, and they take advantage of it. And they wear teams down. And come the fourth quarter, they are a dangerous football team. If you want to beat the Giants, you got to get a huge lead on them early. Jacksonville had a chance to do that. They didn't do it, Tone. And so here's another crazy stat for you with the Giants. This is how crazy their season is, by the way. In games where they trail in the fourth quarter, the last 5 years when they were the worst team in football, they were 3-58. They're 4-1 this year.
Wow. And the offensive line shockingly had a pretty good game, right? They only gave up 1 sack, but they did have some casualties. Evan Neal went down, and I believe they lost Daniel Bellinger as well, a rookie tight end. So, Evan Neal's a huge loss for them. I'm not sure how long he'll be out. I'm not exactly sure how serious it is. But you mentioned Saquon Barkley, a quiet 100-yard game, but averaged over 4 yards a carry.
He had a big run yesterday too. He had a couple big runs. His one cutback actually set up the Giants' go-ahead touchdown and deep in Jaguars territory. But you're right. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out the Evan Neal loss. They lost him around the third quarter or so. I'm like, man, at one point they did not have their starting right tackle. They did not have Dory Jackson, their starting quarterback, or they did not have Daniel Bellinger, their starting tight end. And they already got a bunch of injuries already. Right. In the secondary, at defensive end. I'm like, how can this team do it? How can this team withstand it? Their only loss this year is to the Cowboys. And I think that's what everybody kind of thinks of the Giants right now. They got blown out by the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. But if you watch all their games, they just don't beat themselves. They're like a well-oiled machine.
No turnovers, no sacks, not too many negative plays. And then when you have a guy like Daniel Jones who has the ability to escape, he's not shifty, but he has straight line speed where he can get away from you. He's twitchy. So Daniel Jones with 11 carries for over 100 yards, averaging almost 10 yards a carry. That's what did it for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That tells me they couldn't get off the field on third down, and they kept allowing themselves to get gashed, especially on that final drive.
Daniel Jones tripped again yesterday.
Doesn't he always?
This one wasn't
Too tall Jones. I should start calling him Too Tall Jones.
It wasn't as bad as the one in Philadelphia because he might have been tripped up himself. But if he doesn't trip over himself, he scores a touchdown on the 1 third down run. And I'm like, oh my God, Daniel Jones did it again. But they're not a comedy of errors anymore. And I honestly, Tone, I did this for week 7 overreactions and reality checks for CBS. I do that every Sunday. Mm-hmm. I put as one of them, Daniel Jones should get another shot as a starting quarterback in 2023. And I said it's reality because he's not doing anything to lose his job.
Yeah, that's the really interesting part because they didn't renew his contract, nor did they pick up his 5th-year option. So this is what they can do. Daniel Jones understands that he's not in any bargaining position. He has zero leverage. Let's be totally real about it. So if they're not sold on this quarterback class, because they're not going to be at this rate, they're not going to be in position for a top 10 pick at this rate.
6 wins, all right.
Exactly. I don't see them being in position for any one of these quarterbacks like a CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. They're not going to be in position for one of those guys. So this is what they can do. And then we're going to transition into the Commanders game, which is one of the more fascinating wins of the weekend. But this is what they can do. They can extend Daniel Jones, give him another 1-year extension, give him another 1 year on his deal, or even 2 years if they're feeling a little bit more confident. And it doesn't have to be a bank buster. You don't have to break the bank with it. But to let them know, hey, listen, we want to add another couple more years onto it. Let's see if he can continue to elevate, because let's be totally real. This is the highest quality of coaching he's ever received. So you can make an argument we haven't even seen the best Daniel Jones yet. And you can make an argument that his ceiling is kind of unclear because he hasn't really gotten solid coaching, because he's had like 3 or 4 different head coaches since he's been in New York. No stability at all. So there's something to be said about that. Stability breeds success, in my opinion. And they don't have to be in the rush based off of the way they're winning games. Now, sure, we're going to see as the season progresses, as the competition gets stiffer. Once they play the Eagles, they're going to be able to see where they are.
They got a tough game this week too. They got Seattle.
They got a tough against Seattle. Seattle beat the Chargers, and they put up 37 points. Yeah, San Fran lost. This is a really wacky NFL season, which, in my opinion, just means that it's that much more wide open for the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Washington Commanders, we have about 5 more minutes until our break, and then we'll be able to get Mike Gill in the building. But The Commanders, man, beating the Packers 23-21. Wow. That's all I can say, man. That's all I can say about this game. I can say more though. If Carson Wentz is in this game, they don't win.
Yeah, you know what? You brought this to me pre-production here, Tone, and I just keep thinking to myself, you know what? You're right. The Commanders were efficient yesterday. Efficient on both sides of the ball. But look at what Taylor Heineke did. I'm pulling up the stats right now. So 20-33, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, and there's I just felt like there was more of, I guess you could say, a fire in that team. Like, did you see Taylor Heineke yesterday? He gets the 1 first down, and when he's on the sideline, he's getting everybody all fired up. He's getting the crowd all fired up. I mean, the Washington crowd is what it is at this point, right? But I feel like there was life in FedEx Field because of Heineke. It's like they know what they're getting. They know that it's efficient. Is Taylor Heineke a franchise quarterback? Hell no. But he's also a guy that kind of captivated that franchise in that city because he took them. I'll be 7-9. He did take him to a playoff game in 2020, and they almost won that playoff game. But 7-16 on third down, 5.1 yards per play. I mean, this is the best they played defensively all year. And I really got to bring this to you, Two-Tone. Are the Packers just not good?
And that's what I wanted to get to. Listen. This is the Packers have lost to the Giants. They've lost to the Commanders. They've lost to the Vikings. They lost to the Jets. The highest quality loss is probably the Vikings because the Vikings are 5-1 right now or 6-1, something like that. So that was the highest quality loss, if that makes sense. But when you lose to the Giants, Jets, and Commanders 3 years in a row, three weeks in a row, excuse me, you're a bad team. I'm sorry, you're a bad football team. You allowed yourself to lose to 3, in my opinion, less than organizations 3 weeks in a row. That honestly just can't happen. But Washington, they dominated time of possession, and you said something really, really fascinating. They put in a very efficient game, but even more than that, they knew what they were getting out of Taylor Heineke, and that team knows how to play with Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke understands the personnel. He got the ball to, I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 different guys. 10 different guys touched that ball. About 10 different guys touched that ball. About 7 to 10 guys touched that ball on offense. Carson Wentz, you don't get that effect with him, and he just didn't do much to lose the game, and you saw an offense that had some level of an identity yesterday, right? They ran the ball well, 166 rushing yards, and Terry McLaurin had his best game of the season, and it wasn't even the greatest game, but 73 yards, 5 catches, 1 touchdown. He had his best game of the year. And it shocks me how Carson Wentz wasn't able to maximize Terry McLaurin. It shocks me, honestly.
So this is the one thing I think I noticed when I rewatched the game last night. I think this is what Washington wanted to do at the beginning of the season, but obviously Brian Robinson had that unfortunate incident where he got shot twice in the leg. But Robinson was going to be the number 1 back. He was. So you had him, you had Gibson, right? By the way, Heineke's touchdown pass to Gibson, I really don't know if Antonio Gibson's ever gone out wide and caught a touchdown pass down the seam before, but he did. I don't think that happens with Carson Wentz, but you saw how Washington wanted to run their offense with Taylor Heineke. They became a run-first team. The Packers are going to play cover 2 zone. They're all for it because that just shapes up running the football, controlling the game, controlling time of possession, and they just methodically moved down the field. And keep in mind, Washington almost blew this game yesterday, too.
Sure.
This final score, it's kind of deceiving because they were up 9 with 6:40 left, and they dominated the whole second half. I don't know what is wrong with the Packers. They could not run the football yesterday. They only had, 38 yards rushing. They only
12 attempts, though. 12 attempts is not going to build up any equity with your running backs. You know what I mean?
Why are they why do they want to throw all the time for Aaron Rodgers? Like, are they just trying to justify a $50 million contract at this point?
I'm telling you, and I've been saying this for a while, I don't think Matt LaFleur is a good coach. I think he's a guy who inherited a very, very, very lucrative situation. His best years, obviously, was when Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams were, doing their thing. Now Devontae Adams is not there, and Rodgers doesn't have his go-to guy. They don't have any wide receivers. They don't really have any tight ends. All they have is a running back and Aaron Jones, and they don't even give him the ball. So now at the end of the day, you're trying to lean on Aaron Rodgers is 40, right?
He's close to 40. I think he's 39 this year. So yeah, you're not far.
You're leaning on one of the OGs when it comes to quarterbacks. Not saying his talent has depleted, but he's aging. He's aging, and that's pretty much what it is. And you just can't continue to put him in situations like that. But overall, I just don't think they're a good team. But we have our guy Mike Gill in the green room right now. Jeff, I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say about this NFC East and these Phillies, man. But any final thoughts before we hit this break?
I kind of wanted to mention the Chiefs before we went on break. Did you notice, like, when the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, what they did was, okay, we're going to sign Juju Smith-Schuster. We're going to sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And they're getting better every single week because they got guys that are like, they're not sexy names, but they can make plays. And now you're seeing them make plays. The Packers, they decide, you know what, we're going to draft Christian Watson, doesn't play. Romeo Doubs does play, but he's inconsistent. He's a rookie. The Packers just didn't do enough to replace Devontae Adams. At all. But you guys are locked in on Good Morning NFC East. He's Jeff Kerr. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. Next up, we have our guy, Mike Gill. Keep it locked, you guys. You don't want to miss this.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
The faces you know, the team you trust. The Delaware Valley's leading news program, Action News.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
like Gil in the house, just like he is every Monday morning. And Mike, it's hard for me to balance watching the Phillies and covering the Giants game yesterday and doing all that fun stuff. But we got to start with the Phillies here. Can you believe it, honestly? And it just seems like fate they're playing the Astros in the World Series.
I don't know that we could have envisioned when you started this show that 6-7 weeks in that the Phillies would lead the best division in football right now. How about that? Think about that. The Phillies have knocked off the best record-wise. I don't know if you want to say the 4 best teams collectively are the best, although you can make a strong argument that they are. It's been unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. There's nothing better in sports than when a baseball team can capture a city because of the everyday nature of it. I mean, a football team going to the Super Bowl is great, but you have to wait that 2 weeks to go to the Super Bowl. An NBA team goes to the finals, but it's like every other day you're playing baseball every day, man. So yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, everybody was asking me, everybody knows I'm a big Phillies fan, and they're just like, what are you feeling right now? I'm like, I'm just enjoying the ride. I've been enjoying it. I watch Phillies every day. I waste 3 hours of my life, now 4 hours the way baseball's been, but I waste every single day watching this team, and I've been frustrated all year, and I've been emotionally high all year. I couldn't wait. I think I jumped for joy. I think I was more excited when Joe Girardi got fired than I actually was when they won the National League yesterday. So,
well, this Phillies team is an interesting story for all the teams in the NFC East. If you want to circle it back here, it's that I had said all season long, can the Phillies win the World Series? Sure. What do I predict that they will? No. Would I be shocked if they made it? No. Why? What's the ceiling of the roster? When that team is playing their best, they had 2 Cy Young candidates. Aaron Nola was 3rd in the Cy Young a couple of years ago. Wheeler was 2nd or 3rd last year. You have the MVP of the league. Nick Castellanos came in here and hit 300 with 35 homers. Schwarber has been a World Series champion. You have the best catcher in baseball. You have all those guys playing at their best. You have a team that could win a World Series. Did they all play at their best all season long collectively? No. Can the Giants get that going? What's their ceiling? I don't think the Giants' ceiling is this is a Super Bowl team. I think this is a Giants team that has played excellent. I think this is a Giants team that is well coached, that has changed the culture. But I don't think the ceiling of the roster is a Super Bowl. Is the ceiling of the Cowboys roster a Super Bowl? And I think it might be. I think that if they play their best, we're realizing in sports now, Jeff, especially in football, what you did one week doesn't matter the next week. It's what you do on that particular day, against that particular opponent. If the Cowboys play their best, they probably are good enough to win a Super Bowl. The Eagles, absolutely. I think the Giants would be the one team right now you wonder if they play their best in a playoffs, can they win a wild card game, a division game, a championship game? I don't know that they're quite there yet.
Well, that's the thing too, right, Mike? If the Giants keep this up and the Eagles keep up what they're doing, Giants don't win the division, there'll be a playoff team, but they're going to have to go to a Seattle, or right now it is Seattle. They would have to go to somewhere like there, or a Minnesota even. Like, can they beat that team on that given week? They play with fire every single week, and I love it. But how many?
That was a nice win for them, though. Yesterday, they were in kind of a trap situation. If you look at the spread on that game, you're thinking, why are the Giants an underdog here? And everybody was kind of thinking, all right, this is the game where maybe. And look, Jacksonville's not great. They're much improved. They're better coached. But the Giants went on the road and won a game where people were now saying, you're a road favorite. You got to win this game. Wasn't the prettiest game they've played all year, but they figured out a way to get it done and had their backs to the wall on that last drive and were able to get a big stop right at the goal line there. So I thought that was a pretty gutty win for the Giants yesterday.
Wasn't that last play a microcosm of their season, though? Trevor Lawrence was a great pass to Christian Kerr. Kerr catches it around the middle of the field. I feel like the Giants last year will allow that touchdown to go in. No, Fabian Moreau, Xavier McKinney were right there to tackle Christian Kirk. Right at the one. They didn't even make sure that ball was close to the plate. Like I said right away, they won. It just feels like they're so disciplined. They are not going to beat themselves. They're going to let other teams do that.
Yeah, this is the big difference between them. That's a team last year that would have had a key penalty in that spot. Maybe they knock the quarterback down and they get another play, or there's some sort of stupid thing that happens to them. They certainly have cleaned up. They are a very clean team. That's the one thing when you watch the Giants. It's a clean football team. They don't beat themselves with stupid penalties. The big question for them will be, when they and look, we're not going to find the Giants are similar to what the Eagles were last year. Okay, you're a surprise. You've now and they're way ahead of where the Eagles were last year. The Eagles were 2-5. They flipped their season around at the end. I don't think the Giants are going to flip their season around where they're going to go on some losing streak all of a sudden, but they're finding ways to win. And that's the sign of a good team. When you find ways to win and you're finding different ways to do it every single week.
But can they be, I guess, a team like Seattle? And Seattle's just lost DK Metcalf. Who knows how long he's out for? But the Seahawks have been, to me, just as big of a surprise as the Giants. Geno Smith's been incredible. Now you got Kenneth Walker running over everybody. Right after Rashad Penny runs over everybody. And now you got guys like Marquise Goodwin catching 2 touchdowns in the football game. I didn't give the Seahawks a chance to beat the Chargers yesterday, and they demolished them.
Seahawks are a good defense. They have some interesting young players on that defense, and you're right. The running game with Walker, I mean, their problem over the years has been the offensive line, right? When they had Russell Wilson running around making plays, they didn't have much of an offensive line. But Metcalf getting hurt, that loses a big weapon there. But if they can run the ball, I like that young defense they have. They have 2 young corners on that Seattle team. What's their ceiling? I don't think their ceiling is a deep playoff run, but in this NFL this year, and specifically in this NFC, it is as wide open as we've ever seen it. And look, the 2 teams in the division in the NFC East yesterday put the pressure on the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are 6-0. You're feeling great. The Giants are still 1 game behind you, and you play them twice, and the Cowboys won again. Was that the most impressive win? Yeah, maybe. I mean, they gave up 6 points to a Detroit team that's been pretty offensively. Now, it's coming off the heels of them getting shut out. No Swift in the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown gets knocked out of the game. But look, you got to look at that Dallas game yesterday and say they dominated that game for the most part. Their defense just absolutely toyed. And I thought Dak was a little rusty. Obviously, the throw early in the game, he misses that wide open throw, and you're kind of setting the tone. But I thought what we took from that game was that Dallas didn't change the offense all that much for Dak returning. And I thought that was something I wanted to see. What were they going to do with the offense once Dak came back? And they kind of kept it, simplified it. I don't know if that'll evolve as he comes back. I'm assuming it will. But I thought Dallas had, maybe of all the games yesterday, had one of the more impressive wins, even though they beat a team that really is seeming like it's kind of hit the wall right. And look, I thought Detroit coming out of the bye could have kind of repurposed itself. Didn't happen yesterday. Ran into too good of a defense. Look, the Eagles beat a really good defense last week, and you saw it on display yesterday.
Yeah, not only did they beat a good defense, they scored 26 points off said defense, which Dallas just doesn't do. But I wanted to point this out, Mike. When's the next time Dallas is going to lose? They play the Bears next week, and they got the bye. Green Bay looks god-awful. Then you got Minnesota and the Giants in Thanksgiving week. There could be a loss there, but the pressure's going to be on the Eagles throughout the year.
All 3 of these teams. I mean, you look at their schedules, who's going to trip up next? Really, right? Who's going to be the team that trips up next? Philly's got 3 games that are very winnable here, back to back to back. And then you play Indy, who is obviously very beatable, but the game's on the road. And then Green Bay, that's one game where a couple weeks ago you're like, okay, Green Bay. Well, Green Bay right now can't find its way offensively a lick. They lost to Washington yesterday, for God's sakes. And I mentioned on my show, if Tyler Heineke can come in there and give that team a shot in the arm, they could put themselves into I hate to say it, wild card contention. They won yesterday. What are they now? 3-4. So they're in the mix with everybody. I don't know that we're ever going to see Carson Wentz get his job back, by the way. I mean, that's not that that's a huge story or a big deal, but he's on the injured list, and I don't know that he gives up, gives that job up. But for them to beat Green Bay yesterday has to be a nice shot in the arm for Washington, because obviously of the 4 teams in the division, we don't talk about them a whole heck of a lot, but that was kind of a season-saving win for that team.
Yeah, I would agree there. Just because Washington, I thought they were dead in the water. And you look at Taylor Heineke, you're starting to think to yourself, okay, what I wanted to see with Washington yesterday was how efficient was the offense going to be? I think this is what they wanted to do at the beginning of the season, but Brian Robinson accidentally, I shouldn't say accidentally. It wasn't, man, I'm losing my train of thought here. Getting shot twice in the leg. It sucked. Let's just put it that way. It sucked. It was unfortunate. I'm just glad he's back carrying footballs around. And he was so efficient yesterday. Antonio Gibson was a great bell cow. Number 2 for them. They ran the ball. They spread the ball around. Something Carson Wentz was not doing. And all of a sudden, the offensive line did not look terrible. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, are they better with Taylor Heineke? Is this just like a thing?
Listen, he did something that Wentz wasn't able to do. He got McLaurin involved in the second half of that game, and that's the guy that hasn't done anything all year with Carson Wentz. So they got McLaurin involved. They had a nice dual threat at running back. And Heineke, look, he's not going to win any, like spectacular. You're not going to be like in awe watching this guy, but he's a gritty guy that it seems like there's something to be said for. The players like playing for guys, and it just doesn't seem, for whatever reason, that we all know the story with Wentz. He's not the most popular guy in the locker room for whatever reason. Heineke's probably a guy that they like playing for and want to rally around. But I thought the defense, their defense, I thought stepped up in that. And part of it's Green Bay's offense is so limited right now. But they're going to get Chase Young back here. So their defense was supposed to be their calling card, right? And I thought it played pretty well. I thought they benefit yesterday from facing a team that just has no weapons, but possibly that defense, which carried them a couple of years ago to a playoff berth, might be keeping them in the wild card mix here.
Well, that's the thing right now. They're ahead of Green Bay in the wild card mix. Right now, I was looking at the playoff standings last night. You got the 4th division leaders, obviously. Then you got Giants, Dallas. Dallas is 6th in the NFC right now. Think about that. Because of the Eagles. And then you got like these bunch of 3 and 4 teams, like the Cardinals and the Commanders and the Packers. And we are embracing a scenario where Green Bay does not make the playoffs.
Oh, Tampa Bay. I mean, think about that. I know it sounds weird because who's going to win that division? I mean, I think the Carolina's like a game out of winning that thing right now. You would think that Tampa Bay at some point is going to turn this thing back around. I don't know which of those 4 teams gets their act together. I mean, I thought Atlanta was going to have a shot to at least play close. I mean, did we see Atlanta just fall apart yesterday, or did we see the beginning of the Bengals putting it together? I don't know, because I thought Atlanta was starting to finally play well, find themselves. I don't know if they were going to win that game yesterday, but I thought they were getting like 7 points in the game. I figured, all right, they can keep that game close. Cincinnati has not impressed, and Atlanta just fell apart yesterday. The Saints have been a mess. They gave up 42 to an Arizona team that struggled. Now they got Hopkins back. Maybe that changes their season. And then Carolina, I mean, they trade McCaffrey away, and you're thinking this thing's a fire sale. They go out and Rochambeau the Buccaneers yesterday. Someone in that division has to make the playoffs. So right now I'm going to stick with Tampa, but I don't feel great about it.
Here's one for you. Does Todd Bowles deserve to have this job after this season?
It's funny you say that because our buddy Rob Motti, who lives down there and is at a lot of Tampa games now, he, of course, used to cover the Eagles for the AP. He tweeted yesterday, and Rob's not a hot take guy, who said these are the kind of losses that get people fired. I mean, you've played as poorly as you have. You have Carolina. You're a 13-point favorite. They lost last week at Pittsburgh as a 9.5-point favorite. They were a 13-point favorite yesterday. 13. That had never happened in Tom Brady's history. that he was a double-digit favorite a week after being a touchdown or more favorite and lost both games. So, yeah, it's something to keep an eye. If Rob's saying it, I'm keeping my eye on that.
Yeah, what upsets me with the league this year, and again, I saw this with the Saints Thursday night. I saw it with the Bucks this week. I've seen it with the Raiders. Why do these guys have jobs? Why is Dennis Allen getting a second chance? Why is Todd Bowles getting a second? I'm sorry, I would have given it to Byron Leftwich. I would have given him a shot. Todd Bowles did not impress me the first time around.
Well, I think both of those situations were unique, to be honest with you. I hear what you're saying, but Arians walked out very late in the situation, and it was like the defense had been the calling card for that team. The guy's right here. He had head coaching experience. Instead of it at the time that Arians left, starting a search, let's just, go here. Allen had also kind of taken over that team for, I think, didn't Peyton miss a couple games with COVID or something?
I mean, he ran the defense, but I don't know. I just would have given it to Pete Carter.
I'm not saying they were the best options. I think Bowles deserved a second shot. The Jets thing was a mess. And the fact that he ran the defense for the Super Bowl champions, I think he had a deserved shot. I think New Orleans probably could have, I think there was a lot of bad head coaching candidates, honestly. To pick those two is kind of, I think the Bears made a complete mistake. I think the Buccaneers, not the Broncos, yesterday too. That Broncos team, they lose to the Jets at home. No Russell Wilson, I get it, but man, I think they made a head coaching blunder. Eberflus was a disaster. You picked a guy who worked with Aaron Rodgers and then have Justin Fields and are now telling Fields, hey, why don't you become Aaron Rodgers? We're going to put that offense in for you. Terrible decision there. So, yeah, I think a lot of the head coaching decisions have been head scratchers.
Yeah, I just don't understand what the Bears were doing. When they hired Eberflus, defensive guy. Why do the Bears always got to go back to defensive guys? They're still the only franchise in the entire NFL that doesn't have a 4,000-yard passer or a 30-touchdown passer ever. And
well, they brought in Mark Trestman a couple of years ago. That didn't work either.
So you stay away from them now. And like you said, they have a franchise quarterback. You're right, though. There were a lot of bad head coaching candidates. And I said Brian Daboll would have been perfect for the Bears, and give credit to the Giants.
Well, and that's why it's interesting. These things, it's funny how you're the hot name on the coach. A couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago now, but Greg Roman was the hot name, man. He was the coordinator. He was in San Francisco with Kaepernick, and he was going to be the next head coach. And then he just kind of faded out. And if I ask people watching this right now, where's Greg Roman? You might not even know where he's coaching right now. He's down in Baltimore, but still, he was the hot coach. Then remember Paul Gunther a couple of years ago, the defensive coordinator in Cincinnati. He was going to be the next head coach. I don't even know that he's still in the league anymore. These guys,
he's their defensive coordinator.
Right. I mean, these guys are the hot names, and then for whatever reason, they elevate to the hot name, and then they kind of fade away. And that's where, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Eagles and their coordinators. But think about it. Dan Quinn, that defense has been outstanding. You would imagine he's going to be a head coaching candidate. You're going to have to start looking at Kellen Moore, I guess, that when teams win, people pluck, right? So what about the Giants? What happens to the Giants if they keep winning? Brian Daboll's staff, are people going to start looking over there? Look, as much as I like Sirianni, I'm not going to sit here and say that Sirianni stinks or anything. That's not what I'm saying. The guy I wanted to be the Eagles head coach was Brian Daboll. When he was available and they hired Sirianni, I wanted Brian Daboll, and you're seeing what a good coach and a good coaching staff could do. And that Giants team right now is prospering. Some teams made bad coaching decisions, and you're seeing the results of it right now.
There are 3 guys right now I would hire to be a head coach. Eric Bieniemy's one. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. He is not going to head coaching job. Sorry, he's under the injury tree. Mike Kafka, another one. I would hire him. Just
who's on the Giants staff, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And he's the play caller there. He is the innovator of that offense. And with Daniel Jaquan Barkley, you're doing something right. And I mean, James Urban, I always like too. He wouldn't be one of the guys I'd go with, but James Urban, the quarterback coach of the Baltimore Ravens, I think he's done a brilliant job with Lamar Jackson. But I mean, really, the 2 main ones are, to me, are Bieniemy, Kafka. Matt, there's a couple coaches in there where I'm just like, I can't believe this guy. Oh, Ken Dorsey is the third. Ken Dorsey is the other one I would hire to be an NFL head coach right now. I think
you got to imagine Shane Steichen's name's going to come up.
Oh, he's going to come up. Jonathan Gannon's name's going to come up again because that's just the way it is. The Eagles are winning, like you said. Everybody's going to plunk Dan Quinn, but I'm hiring an offensive head coach. No disrespect to Dan Quinn. I think Dan Quinn will probably get another job, but I just do not like guys who get second chances. And this even, unless you win a Super Bowl, like Doug.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind giving someone I think everybody deserves a second chance, and sometimes the situation you're in. Now, Dan Quinn got to a Super Bowl. I mean,
yeah,
I don't think
Super Bowl too. Him and Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, so I don't mind a coach getting a second opportunity, but what's the personality of your team? What do you want it to be? You hire a defensive coach, and then you have a young quarterback. We see that so many times where you're trying to pair a young quarterback up with a defensive-minded coach, or you bring in the wrong coach for the quarterback that you have. I mean, Denver hired a coach to coach Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers didn't go to Denver. So now you have a situation where they have a coach that they really don't want now because they didn't have the right quarterback for the guy. I mean, he's in way over his head. That team's a mess out there. And by the way, I thought about this because I think they're playing they're in the London game, I think, next weekend, right? Is Denver in the London game? I don't know who they're playing, but I thought to myself, think about Denver's scheduling here. They've played in prime time like 3 times already. Now they have the London game coming up. Somebody thought this team was going to be really good, but there is something to be said for having a routine and getting into that routine. They have never been able to get into a routine. They're playing Sunday night, Monday night, Sunday morning. I mean, that's got to be tough for them to just, hey, I just want to play Sunday at 1:00. Can I play a Sunday at 1:00 game for God's sakes? No, I think they did yesterday.
Technically, they did in their time.
They did yesterday, right? But their quarterback's out. That team has just been a mess. It's been a total. But that shows you again, hiring the right coach and setting the right culture. Denver had a talented roster that many people thought that adding that quarterback would put them into Super Bowl contention. That's why they're on all these primetime games. And the coach and the staff and the culture, disaster.
You knew it the first game, right? They lost the game to Seattle because Nathaniel Hackett, for some reason, decided to waste 40 seconds off the clock, then kicks a 60-yard field goal when you didn't have to do that. It kind of just spiraled out of control. You can lose a team in week 1. You can. I've taught the players about this. You can lose your team in week 1, and he might have lost the team already.
Yeah. Listen, I think one of the interesting parts about this division in Philadelphia, NFC East, is how the coaching will be a factor. You've got 4 coaches who have Ron Rivera has been to a Super Bowl. He was hired in Washington to try to set a culture there because the culture had been so out of whack. Brian Daboll's obviously come in already and put his thumbprint on it. We know Nick Sirianni's thumbprint. I think the question is McCarthy. He's always the guy. He has a Super Bowl of the 4. But I think we've all kind of questioned him, especially in his Dallas tenure here. At what point is he going to make a mistake? Or at what point is the coaching in this division going to be the factor, especially between the 3 teams? McCarthy has the most experience, the biggest resume, but you got Daboll and Sirianni right now, but I think McCarthy hasn't been a factor yet. He hasn't really been a problem for them. I don't know if he has really got himself out of the way and let his coordinator take over, but you think who's the best coach team could be a factor on this final stretch run. Well, I say final stretch run. We do have, 10 weeks still left to go, thankfully. The NFL season starts to move a little too fast sometimes.
I can't believe we're a third of the way in. I wanted to ask you this. So I got the Eagles at 1, Cowboys at 2 in the NFC. Minnesota 3? Is it even close?
It's funny. I had Sal Powell on my show on, I guess it was Thursday last week. He normally does Friday, but we had to switch his days this week for something. I asked him who's the biggest competitor to the Eagles. He went Minnesota. So I thought San Francisco could be in the mix. They got Rochambeau yesterday. Their defense was just pile drived yesterday. They could not stop Kansas City. I thought, and it wasn't because of McCaffrey. I just think their defense was good enough. I would say Dallas is the biggest contender. I didn't go Minnesota. Sal went Minnesota. I say that Dallas is definitely the next. It's Philly and Dallas for me. Who's that third team? I don't know. It could be the Giants at this point. The Giants in Minnesota. I think Minnesota's got better skill players, but I think, and there's another team that hired a new coach, by the way. I think the Giants might be a more disciplined, better coach team, and their defense makes plays. Their defense doesn't have a standout. They're going to be interesting in a couple of years, though, that defense. They got a lot of young players on that defense.
I did make a joke last week that we may have saw the NFC and AFC championship games in week 6 because the Eagles and Dallas were so far ahead of everybody, and Buffalo, Kansas City, we know they're far ahead of everybody. Now Cincinnati's trying to knock them over there, but in the AFC, who do you got? Like, who's your best 5 in the AFC right now?
It's Buffalo, and then I guess it's got to be Kansas City. I like Cincinnati coming into the year. They've really disappointed me, but they went out and fixed that line, we thought, and then the line didn't play well. I think they're starting to find – Burrow was awesome yesterday. Chase was awesome yesterday. Higgins was awesome yesterday. They really had their way. That Atlanta defense isn't very good, though. But I'm going to put Cincinnati in there. The Jets losing Hall, I think, hurts their offense creativity a little bit. You know, he looks like he tore his ACL, I think they said. So that's a big loss for them. Man, those 3 teams, Cincinnati, Baltimore won yesterday, but I wasn't all that impressed. And I haven't, their defense has got a lot of question marks, but I guess they're one of the 5. The Dolphins won last night, right? I mean, so you got to – they
looked a lot better with Tua. I mean,
yeah.
There's still a little – I don't know. It wasn't impressive, but I don't think they win that game.
Probably you're asking me for 5, and I can only get to 3.
Okay, so there you go. That's
and
all
one of the 3, and one of the 3 is 4-3. I just feel like the Bengals are better than their record, and I think you saw maybe their most complete game yesterday.
Oh, and the Ravens beat them. So the Ravens are such a weird team because they've blown so many leads. They could easily be in the upper line.
Oh, and don't forget Tennessee, by the way. I know they're not excited about them, but they've won 4 in a row now all of a sudden. They're starting to find their way a little bit.
They are by far the best team in that god-awful division we call the AFC South. It's not even
the Chargers, I said it on my show Friday. There are too many injuries. I was concerned with them this week and just overall. We do a segment called Who's In, Who's Out, where we try to predict the playoff teams based on the results that we've seen up to that point. And I said, look, I just can't trust the Chargers offense right now. Herbert, again, yesterday didn't have a great day. Slater being out, Allen, being banged up.
Now it's they just can't overcome this. Everybody wants to get on Brandon Staley. I'm like, okay, can you name me the starting offensive line on the Chargers right now?
No, and that's part of the problem when I have the Chargers. It's they're banged up in key spots. I mean, Herbert, as much as everybody loves the kid Herbert, he hasn't been to the playoffs in a league where if you have a quarterback, it's almost impossible not to make the playoffs. And think right now, if the playoffs were to start, which quarterbacks wouldn't be in? Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert. I mean, you're looking at level quarterbacks, and you're like, it's almost a rite of passage if you have a quarterback that you're making the playoffs. And Russell Wilson, these guys aren't in the playoffs right now.
I've been getting my laughs in because I said the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West, and they'll probably win by at least 2 games. I think they're up by 2 games already.
Well, we all thought that division was going to be just the Raiders stink, and they won yesterday by the skin of their teeth against a bad Houston team. Denver's been bad all year. The Chargers are average. The Chiefs are by far the best team in that division. The South, it's Tennessee right now. I think the Colts will be, I don't know. That roster is better than what their record is indicating. So we'll see. But and then the North, Pittsburgh, not the same as they've been. Cleveland, no quarterback. They've been such a just blah team. Baltimore's defense not good enough to be a Super Bowl contender. It's the Bengals, right? So it's really that AFC. It's the two East divisions right now that are kind of leading the conferences, because the AFC East, if New England wins tonight, and I think they will, the line's 8. I think they're going to overwhelm Field. They'll win like 24-3, 24-7. They'll be a low-scoring game. They'll be 4-3. So
yeah, they'll be the only division where everybody's over 500. So, yeah, you're right. It's the East teams, and that's why I'm enjoying the Good Morning NFC East show. John McMullen said it best yesterday. Jeff's going to have plenty to talk about on the Monday besides the Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I had the two TVs outside on my deck before the Phillies game came on. I had the two NFC East games on here. So I was zoned in on both of those games yesterday. And I could literally have gone an hour on that Dallas game yesterday and the Giant game. I had them both taking notes. I didn't see a lot of the Washington game. And then the Phillies game came on, so I went to a third device. But the Giant game was the one that got bumped, and then it came back because once Dallas kind of to pull away, I switched the Giants and Dallas, Philadelphia. The Phillies got the main screen at 2:37 yesterday. So.
Well, I'm getting the call from Tone here. We got to wrap it up. Mike, you know I could talk football with you for hours and hours on end. But Mike Gill, everybody, you got to catch him on the Sports Bash today. You guys at Ocean, by the way?
I will be at Ocean at the Sportsbook, the Gallery Sportsbook. Ryan Rothstein with me on Mondays, and we're there every Monday.
All right. Yep. Sounds good. And I'll be on, 5:30 tonight? Am I back on schedule now that I'm not at Phillies games or anything else?
Yeah, man, you're in.
All right,
we call it Good Evening NFC East.
Yes, that's right. Good evening, NFC East. We'll catch that at 5:30. Catch me up at 5:30. Catch Mike Gill at 2 o'clock on 93 ESPN. Mike, pleasure coming on as always.
All right, everybody. See you.
All right. And I got to wrap this show up really, really fast here. I probably got about a minute or so. Man, what a crazy division. The NFL's just nuts. I know in Philadelphia took a backseat yesterday to the Phillies, but you saw a Giants game that went down in the last minute. You saw a crazy Packers play that Aaron Rodgers probably prevented that play from Green Bay scoring and potentially stealing a win in Washington. Green Bay stinks, by the way. After watching that game last night, Green Bay stinks. Then you got the Cowboys. They beat the Lions up pretty good. I still think Dallas is the second best team in the NFC. Overall, I think the Eagles have beaten the two best teams in the NFC, not named Philadelphia, and that's Minnesota and Dallas. So the Eagles have been tested, and they're going to keep getting challenged because I don't see when Dallas is going to lose. The Giants could lose next week to Seattle, but I don't know when Dallas is going to lose next. Minnesota, and the Minnesota game the week of Thanksgiving is going to be huge, and they got the Giants on Thanksgiving, so it's going to be a crazy division. We're going to have a bunch of Steelers writers on this week. I'm going to have my buddy Mark Farzetta on as well. We're going to preview Eagles Steelers. We're going to preview the entire NFC East because that's what this show is. It's Good Morning NFC East. My name is Jeff Kerr. Once again, thanks for tuning in, guys. You can catch all my work on CBS Sports. Have a good day, guys.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.